We all know the saying that all good things must come to an end, and that especially rings true with World of Warcraft Dragonflight. This expansion has been such a treat, and to be honest, although it's approaching its 2-year birthday, it still feels new to me in some ways. I don't honestly have too many negatives at Dragonflight. Were there many things that could be improved upon? Of course. But this expansion ranks below Mists of Pandaria, Wrath, and Legion for me, but has rightfully taken its place as my 4th favorite. So without further ado, here are 3 things I loved about World of Warcraft Dragonflight. Number 3, the setting and the calm before the storm. Dragonflight is very much a chill expansion with a more lighthearted tone. You feel this as soon as you step off the boat at the waking shore. This was a nice change of pace after how dark Shadowlands was. The isles themselves are gorgeous to look at, and each zone has its own identity, with a bit of nostalgia in one of them. I'm looking at you, Azurspan. Yes, Blizzard, you know we love Northrend. The Waking Shore, though, was my personal favorite, and before raid, I would just find myself flying around the zone, looking at the beautiful skybox in the distance. I love that while exploring these zones, we get to see our characters just be adventurers and learn about the land. We find secrets hidden away, and learn more about the dragon aspects and what their flights do. We also get some more grounded races in these zones, such as the Centaur and the Gnolls, which it feels like it's been ages since we've seen these. A quick shout out to the Xal'atath Caverns as well. This is a gorgeous zone, and while I find the content in the zone dull, the story and environment tied together to it made it an amazing zone in my opinion. Dragonflight really is the expansion that is the calm before the storm, and I think the zones will be remembered fondly for this. In the World Soul saga, it has become apparent that the story will be taking a darker, grittier approach, and the zones will reflect this. I know for sure they'll still be beautiful, but when Xal'atath and Eridikron are up to their shenanigans, don't forget about the beauty of the Dragon Isles.
Well struck.
I did not believe you would come.
Honor is of great importance to my people.
Yes, as it is to mine.
Number 2, the world building. Dragonflight often has its main story criticized for being too lighthearted, and while I agree with some of this expansion, it had a lot to offer in terms of side quest lines. A personal favorite quest of mine was the Minari quest line. If you asked me if I'd have an Eridar character in my warband 3 years ago, I likely would have said no since I really forgot all about them after Legion. We got to find out what characters like Hatun and Velen were up to with these quest lines, and these were questions that I feel like we've been asking since Legion. This is then followed up beautifully for Draenei players in their Heritage quest, which raises the groundwork for the future of their race. Let's also take a look at the Koshard questline that the Orcs got for their Heritage quest. This quest allowed us to find out the fates and whereabouts of so many small characters like Shokia, Nazgrim, and other Orcs, and added so much world building to their future and current storyline. We got to learn more about Dirac and Thrall's family, and I absolutely love this quest. I could gush about it for hours in this section alone. On top of the amazing Heritage questline, we got an awesome storyline with Bane Bloodhoof and Bovon Windtotem, and we also got to see the founders of Durotar again in a surprise a week after the quest concluded. That is the kind of stuff I love from World of Warcraft, especially with the surprise afterwards. Moments like these could go such a long way for the player base, and I'd argue this piece of the story is what people will remember about the expansion fondly. I'd also be remiss to not mention the Blue Dragonflight questline with Sindragosa, Malagos, Kalagos, the rest of the flight. It was very emotional, and if you haven't played it, please do yourself a favor and do this storyline. You will not regret it, trust me. I hope in future expansions that Blizzard's writing team keeps this in mind. Small quest lines with leaders and world updates are what people really love to see, even if it doesn't tie into the main storyline directly. I'll circle back to the Eridar quest, but I just want to mention that that is an all-time favorite questline of mine, and probably my favorite in Dragonflight. Something, again, I did not expect to be saying about this expansion, so a huge kudos to Blizzard for adding that. The Penitent are such an amazing faction. Number 1, the villains.
I was your loyal soldier, Father. Did I not uphold your legacy?
Dragonflight made me remember why World of Warcraft has such amazing antagonists. Right from the get-go, we get Raszageth in the Drakthir starter zone, and she's our primary threat in the launch quest line. She was fun enough and served as a great catalyst for the rest of the incarnates at the end of Vault. The villains that really stood out to me though this expansion were Sarkareth, Farak, and Iridikron. Sarkareth was easily my favorite antagonist of these three. While I enjoyed the Drakthir, I didn't really become a fan of them until the questline with him and Emberthal in the Forbidden Reach. Sarkareth was a Drakthir who believed that any of Neltharion's legacy belonged to them, belonged to Deathwing's creations. This would drive him into madness, and he would stop at nothing to achieve his ends, turning him into a monster. What made this villain interesting to me is, one, he's a new character that has a personal relationship with Scale Commander Emberthal. We see her try to get him to stop throughout the Reach and Zaralak storyline, but Sarkareth was just too far gone. He also served as a warning to what could have happened to Rathian and Sibelian if they kept trying to pursue Neltharion's legacy.
May his name be ever remembered.
After what he has done, why treat him with such respect?
He was Drakthir, and his memory will be a lesson. Instead of helping our people heal, he led many to despair and ruin, chasing the illusion of Neltharion's power.
If only Sarkareth had taken Deathwing's tragedy to heart, and understood that his legacy was poisoned long ago.
Winglord Desrin also served as a great character that allowed a majority of the Sundered Flame to be redeemed after the events of Aberrus and serve under Emberthal. Sarkareth was a villain as well that didn't overstay his welcome and felt fairly grounded, like I said before, compared to villains we've had recently, so it felt like a nice change of pace. Do I believe he could have been saved? Well, only if he stopped before Aberrus, but the Whispers of the Void and the Promise of Power led him to ruin. Now, let's get to the Incarnates. These three were amazing. I love the dynamic of the trio after they are released. While I wish that Viranoth remained a villain a bit longer before her change of heart, Farak was the definition of a fun love-to-hate villain. The personality he gave off was Starscream from Transformers, but he fulfilled his role beautifully in the final patch. I also really love Xal'atath, and I love using it on box. I want to just say that. The quest was grindy, but the actual quest line storyline was pretty cool. Iridikron wants nothing more than to stop the Titans, and he makes that very clear throughout all of Dragonflight. One of Blizzard's best moves was keeping him alive so that we still have him for future storylines, and we know this is not the last of Iridikron's plans. He will be certainly playing a huge role in future storylines, and I can't wait to see what Blizzard does with him. In conclusion, Dragonflight was a beautiful expansion, and I've had an amazing time with it, as you all can tell. From Season 1 to 4, the gameplay was fun. We got so many good transmogs in this expansion, new and old. A lot of the tier sets are really solid in Dragonflight. We also got dragon riding that changes the way we engage with the open world in World of Warcraft. This is just an amazing feature, and soon we'll be able to use it on all of our mounts. I've really enjoyed that. Like I said before, I'd fly around the Dragon Isles before raid. The movement just felt so good. And we also got a new race and class, which is awesome. I love expansions that do that give us new things to play around with. But I want to hear what you all thought about Dragonflight in the comments below. Did you like it? Did you hate it? Did you think it was a mid-expansion with a lot of heart? I'd love to hear in the comments below. I mentioned earlier, but Dragonflight is now in my top 4 expansions. I think it's a great expansion, and it served for the future foundation that we're going to be receiving in the World Soul Saga. So thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time on Box and Jackalope.